Have you ever had this friend that no matter how much data and information you gave them on climate change, they kept on thinking that it was completely false and made up? Well, in today's video, we're going to look at the confirmation bias, which shows how people keep on confirming what they believe by picking and choosing the pieces of information with regards to what you sent them in a certain way to confirm their beliefs. To understand the confirmation bias, we first have to understand the availability heuristic. And the idea behind this heuristic is that if you're asked about what are the common problems in the world today, the first few things that you would answer are things that you have fresh in your memory. You've just read articles about different subjects, it's fresh in your mind, and that's what you're likely going to state. Or if you hear on the news that there's been a murder or there's been a shark biting a surfer, and we were to ask you afterwards, well, how likely do you think it is, or how dangerous is it to go surfing, and so on? Well, because the piece of information is available, it's vivid, it's recent, you're much more likely going to overestimate the danger of those things than they actually are. And that's based on recall. So as soon as you could recall something and it's vivid, you're likely going to amplify it. So anything that gets covered on the news frequently is going to make you have the impression that it's actually more severe, more common than it might actually be. So if you keep on hearing about the same kind of problems going on, you'll overemphasize it. And if there's some things that just get tucked aside, you'll tend to slowly forget about them. So naturally speaking, airplane crashes or shark biting is something that's so vivid in our minds. It's just something that we don't want to have in our life, that as soon as you hear about it, even though it's been a few years, it's going to lead you to be scared about flying or going to the beach when you're at a beach where there's potential for sharks. Whereas driving a car, driving around, transport in general, like road transport, is way more dangerous than both of those activities. But there's just so many crashes that happen that the news doesn't really report it as much unless it's something very major, very tragic. And because of that, we just don't recall it as well, and therefore we tend to think that it's less important, it's less common. Or not that it's less common, but it's just less likelihood going to happen to me if I fly or if I go to the beach. Another concept linked to that, as I mentioned in the introduction, is the confirmation bias. That you might have information that's available to everyone there, but you're going to pick and choose the information that relates to your own beliefs. So you might have the belief that there's so many polarizing topics these days, and I don't want to get into one, but that vaccines are such and such, or that this politicians is such and such, and you just always believe this way, and no matter how much information that's given to you that makes you believe otherwise, you'll still find the little pieces of information that will kind of confirm your beliefs and say that, no, this is wrong. I don't want this. So availability is in part what you can hear and see, but it's more precisely what you can hear and see in that you actually grasp and that you actually believe. So even though you could get bombarded with misinformation, if you don't believe in that information, it's not going to confirm much and it's not really going to stick. So you're going to keep on thinking in a certain way. Whereas the same people that believe in misinformation, you can try to bombard them with truthful information. And because they believe that this misinformation is true, that climate change isn't real, it's a hoax, and so on and so forth, well, no matter how much information you give them, they're going to have trouble switching their behavior, switching their frame of mind, because in all of this information that you give, they're just going to pick and choose the sentences that confirm their beliefs, the little bit of likelihood that it's not actually man-made and so on, they're going to stick to that. And that's going to confirm their beliefs. A good way to get around confirmation bias is trying to take the other person's position. And not everyone's good at this, but if you want to be able to understand, you want to be able to see both sides. So no matter if you think what you see is truthful, try to understand the other person's point of view. And hopefully afterwards, the truth and facts will succeed. But in these days and age where misinformation is very prevalent and it gets pushed around a lot, we really have to watch out for what we're seeing on social media and trying to push aside some of that wrong information. Because the goal behind showing a lot of this wrong information, as mentioned, is making people believe that it's true. And once you believe that it's true, it's just confirming this belief. So we have to be as critical as possible from news going forward, because this is going to be a more and more large common concern going on in the world today. So hopefully this understanding of how this works will help you understand how people behave, how people see dangers being out there, and how people tend to confirm their beliefs even though you might give them a lot of data showing otherwise. And hopefully you could have these critical discussions with people and having them try to take your position, and hopefully that's going to help, but it's a really big challenge. So hopefully you enjoyed this video on the availability heuristic and confirmation bias. We'll see a bunch of other heuristics, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. If you found this video interesting, please consider subscribing or joining my class where I guide you to apply and expand on the information found in these videos to real life examples. Have a good day.